News.
Okay, David, thank you.
Checking back in with breaking news. Police chasing a pair of burglary suspects. Scott Reif overhead in Air 7.
Yeah, wild pursuit. This black SUV traveled at a really high rate of speed, well over 100 miles an hour on the 405 freeway southbound, headed down to the Westchester area, going through that light over 80 miles an hour. And boy, the speeds are incredible. LAPD has backed off with their patrol cars because it's just too dangerous to follow this suspect. I believe there's 3 people on board the black sedan. Actually, we're hearing 4. There was 2 suspects in the original U-Haul that was being pursued, and they jumped out and got into this vehicle. Now, according to LAPD, they believe there are 4 suspects on board. You see the light flashing from time to time. That's the LAPD helicopter that is overhead. The speed has been so high, and they've been driving so erratically that the patrol cars have backed off, at least for the moment. But they're burglary suspects initially, but they're certainly going to be wanted for a lot more, traveling well over 100 miles an hour, maybe 120 on the 405 southbound, and then turning the lights off. You can imagine how dangerous that is. You're turning your headlights off. You're in a black car, traveling over 100 miles an hour on the 405 south, crossing in and out of lanes and approaching people, and they can't see you. So certainly this has the potential to cause serious injury, even death. We're seeing the individuals driving this vehicle driving very erratically, doing their best to get away. So on the right side of the screen, that's going to be Century Boulevard. That's the 405 freeway, and they're crossing underneath the 405 freeway right now at Century. So really challenging for us because that's right where the approach course to LAX is. And it looks to me like the suspect get on the freeway once again. It's really hard to tell, but boy, this is an extremely dangerous pursuit.
Yeah, a recipe for disaster, especially at this hour when people are getting up, getting going.
And you can see traffic is starting to build as well, so it's going to get congested out there. And of course, that puts more people at risk with this driver. As you mentioned, Scott, driving with the headlights off in a black car, really difficult to see.
Yeah, a recipe for disaster. Yeah, and I couldn't tell if he got back on this way or not. Getting up, getting going.
And you can see traffic is starting to build
that was
as well.
just unbelievable. There you go. You can see the suspect swerving in and out of the lanes here on Century Boulevard, now headed towards LAX, headed westbound. It made a couple turns in there. It was difficult for us to see him. We thought he got on the freeway, but did not. But boy, LAPD's pretty aggressive now. I think they almost have to be, Rachel and John. They may authorize a pit maneuver, but the vehicle has to slow down a bit for a pit. And then, of course, you can always throw out a spike strip, but that's difficult when you don't know where the vehicle's going and the vehicle's traveling at such a high rate of speed. But boy, when that vehicle was doing well over 100 miles an hour on the freeway with the lights off, we certainly thought that could end poorly. Here we go. It looks like they may do a pit, although that's a pretty high rate of speed to do it. You can tell that when the time comes, that moment to do a pit maneuver is when the vehicle starts to make a turn. But LAPD is getting much more aggressive now. I think they feel like they have to because of the danger this individual is posing to the community here.
Yeah, absolutely. And crazy the coordination that was involved with this for them to get out of a U-Haul and to have another person waiting, another driver waiting, and for these suspects to jump into that car.
For the moment. Yeah, and the speed's pretty incredible. You can tell once this suspect gets on a road where they can really take off. We're right next to LAX. We're coming up on Manchester. And boy, you can tell the speeds go way above 100 miles an hour very quickly, very erratically. LAPD is still behind them, but boy, this is dangerous for them as well. You can tell that LAPD car, that patrol car had to swerve to get out of the way of another vehicle. And the speeds here are extremely high, and this is extremely dangerous. It's early, but you do have a lot of people headed to LAX to catch an early flight, and this is in that LAX area. You see the indecision on the suspect there coming up on that intersection, not knowing going right or left, then making a left turn. And when you have indecision at a high rate of speed, boy, we've seen some of these things, these pursuits end very badly. We hope nobody gets hurt, but certainly you can tell how dangerous this is.
Yeah, and
now the light's on.
Yeah, we've seen this driver run multiple red lights already, and obviously the rules of the road don't matter at all at this point. And with the lights out, that is a big hazard for anybody else on the roadway. Scott, I'm wondering, is there a reason they're traveling around the airport? Is it maybe to avoid the helicopter coverage? Are they that smart, do we think?
Yeah, who knows, John? I mean, if they were that smart, this isn't where they would be, so because we can still cover it and the LAPD helicopter can still get right over them. It would be further to the east. There's an area to the east, and I wouldn't want to give it away exactly just in case someone's listening that might want to do something like that. But there are areas where the helicopter cannot follow them. This area right here, they're going to be able to stay overhead because it's just right over the airport. We're basically parked right on top of LAX, and we're looking down. So it's hard to say exactly what's going through the mind of the suspect there and whether they know about the airspace and the restrictions, but I do believe if they knew for sure, they wouldn't be here. They'd be further to the east, and that would cause more problems.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
We did see a close encounter. It came very close to one driver and managed to avoid them. That's some good news, but boy, this is going to end badly at some point if it continues at this rate.
It looks like every time they approach the intersection, they are flickering their headlights on, I guess, to maybe alert drivers, but we are seeing them fly through these red lights, yet like they just did there.
Right. And of course, as the day...
Yeah, boy, extremely high rate of speed. We're north on Florence, so we're actually pulling away from LAX at the moment. And the suspect, boy, looked like he almost hit a bump there or something for a moment. And you could tell at these types of speeds, boy, if you do hit something, you're going to lose control of that vehicle. We don't see a lot of people out on the roadway here. That's Florence headed northbound, headed up towards La Brea. If you're familiar with this area, you see the LAPD helicopter has the night sun overhead flashing on the vehicle once again, and we're right over the 405 headed northbound. So we're headed away from LAX at the moment, but certainly it's interesting that they turn the lights on from time to time. I'm not certain if they think that maybe they can't be seen with the lights off, but that makes it so much more dangerous. There's a vehicle going right through a red light, not slowing down one bit. But people cannot see the vehicle coming if the lights are off and it's a black car. They're right through another red light. So extremely dangerous. As you mentioned, John, a lot of times when you have a suspect who's this desperate, driving at this rate of speed, if they don't give themselves up, in a lot of cases, these end badly with bad accidents and people getting killed.
And Scott, we know that the police are pursuing them. These are burglary suspects. Do we know any more details about the burglary they are accused of committing before this?
No, we don't have much on that. You have to remember this originated as a pursuit of a U-Haul, and I understand some of the cargo in that U-Haul actually fell out during the pursuit. It started, we believe, in the Newton division in that South Los Angeles area. It would have been on the 105, the 405 on surface streets here as we make our way into the South Los Angeles area. Now we're eastbound on Florence. But exactly where the burglary took place and why they're calling them burglary suspects, what information they haven't passed that on to us yet. But open up a little bit, Marcel. Looks like the patrol units have maybe backed off a bit, and they have. And the LAPD helicopter is still overhead. You can push back in so we don't lose them. But I just wanted to get an idea of whether or not they were still right on this suspect's tail. But it looks like the patrol cars have backed off. And it's interesting the way different, supervisors handle things like this. Some will say get right behind them just in case they make a run for it. These are bad individuals. We want to take them into custody. We don't want them to get away. Others will say it's too dangerous, back off. So we've seen both already in this pursuit.
And it is interesting, the coordination, Scott. You said this started with a U-Haul, 2 suspects, and then they transferred into this black sedan where 2 other suspects were waiting. It gives you the indication that this was a very coordinated, well-planned operation.
Yeah, boy, almost hit a vehicle there. You see the vehicle was darked out once again. The headlights are off. You see the brake lights come on. You see they're stuck behind that vehicle. And boy, they almost hit something there. Is that a person?
Looks like somebody got out. Maybe.
Oh, I don't know. They got out. It looks like they got out. They jumped out of the vehicle. So, boy, that really makes things dicey right now because now there's 3 on board. LAPD's trying to figure out where that individual jumped out. They're going to have to try and see if they can't get patrol cars there to get him. If that was a man, it appeared to be, but it was really hard to tell. So they still believe there's 3 individuals on board this black sedan. So, boy, it becomes more and more complicated when someone jumps out of the vehicle. I believe they jumped out. It was really hard for me to tell. Marcel's got a better view than me. I thought maybe there was a pedestrian there that may have got struck, but hopefully that's not the case. But it's a footbail for sure. So we're on Western and headed at a pretty high rate of speed still. and the helicopter will be telling the other units where the suspect got out, and more than likely they're setting up a scene there, searching for the suspect.
Yeah, more and more complicated and more concerning, because also they're now starting to go in and out of residential areas. It looks like if that suspect bailed, that looked like that was on a home where people are living, a residential area, and we don't want, you know, people to be out walking their dogs, getting out ready for work and school as these guys fly back.
Yeah. Especially now, you know, a lot of the time by LAX, we didn't have what we have right now. And you have people getting up, they're getting out, they're going to work. Maybe it's a little early to get your kids up and go to school, but you know what I'm talking about. You can see you hit a bump there at a high rate of speed, could lose control of that vehicle very, very quickly. And what we are seeing is the suspect drive through a residential area, just like you mentioned, Rachel. And boy, it's really dangerous when situations like this. So it wouldn't surprise me if they get patrol cars behind him once again here very quickly. You could tell the suspect sort of driving around in circles. A lot of times we wonder, are they going to a place that they're familiar with to maybe make a run for it or go into their house or somebody's house, something like that. They have coordinated this a little bit. Remember, it was in a U-Haul, two suspects jumping out of the U-Haul, getting inside this black sedan after the pursuit with the U-Haul. That was at the Randy's Donuts on Manchester. And we're back in the proximity of where it started. We're back in the Newton Division. We're in South Los Angeles on Western at 50th. So it could be the suspects are familiar with this area. It's possible.
Yeah, that's usually what we see, Scott. They circle back to a neighborhood they know. Maybe they drop somebody off so they can go hide in a house or somewhere like that. And then maybe they'll do more of that as they continue to drive in this area. Any idea what kind of speeds we're looking at right now?
The speeds right now, I mean, just from a guess, looks like 50, 60 miles an hour on some of those intersections. But there's a speed tracker, and you're going to see it goes up pretty quickly. That vehicle accelerates. Look at that. Probably going to go up above 80, close to 90 miles an hour. This is on Vernon, headed westbound. Boy, look at that. 100 miles an hour on the surface streets, flying past that bus. If somebody pulls out in front of them, we're going to be seeing someone killed more than likely. That's how dangerous this is. I think they backed off. I don't think you're going to see patrol cars driving on Vernon at 100 miles an hour to stay behind this vehicle. I just don't think they'll do that. It's too dangerous for the public to have more than one vehicle doing something like this. It's too dangerous for the officers to try and stay behind him when he's driving at speeds over 100 miles an hour on surface streets. So right now they have the helicopter overhead. They're in tracking mode. It's unfortunate, even when they do back off, though, the suspect continues to drive at a high rate of speed. A lot of times what we see is when the patrol cars back off, the suspect sort of looks in the rearview mirror and says, okay, nobody's behind me. Watch out behind that tree. Try and get me around it. It may make a run for it right here. It looks like they stopped to me. No, maybe someone got out. They stopped. They were behind that tree. I don't know why they would stop like that. That's possible. We didn't see that because that's been their pattern. It looks like one at a time maybe they're going to be leaving this vehicle. It was hard to tell, but the suspect did stop there for a moment.
Like, to your point, Scott, it does seem like these suspects may be familiar with this area, because it does almost seem like they're circling this neighborhood. They seem to be staying within the same area, and you wonder why.
Yeah, looking for
so
opportunity.
we did just get confirmation. One other person did get out. Behind that tree when we couldn't see the vehicle, according to LAPD, a second suspect fled. So we believe two suspects are still on board the black sedan that you're looking at right now here on 54th Street in South Los Angeles. Lights turned off. I'm not sure exactly why, if they think that the police can't see them with the lights off, but the helicopter's overhead. Certainly makes it much more dangerous, though, when you come into a dark patch of roadway and the motorists can't see you. They can't see that you're lit up. But if that was another person that jumped out. We couldn't see it, but we got it from LAPD that two suspects have jumped out of this black sedan. I believe there's still two more on board. It could just be one. It's hard to get all the details exactly right, but we do appear to be in an area the suspect may be familiar with, because now we're going down just these small little streets in this residential area in South Los Angeles.
And with two suspects on foot, Scott, and a pursuit still underway, this really does spread police resources, because they've got to set up a perimeter for each of these incidents.
It's really difficult, John, because, you know, a lot of times, let's just say patrol cars are right behind the vehicle. Somebody jumps out, they take them into custody pretty quickly. But when you only have the helicopter overhead and they're driving so erratically, the patrol cars aren't going to be behind the suspect because it's just too dangerous. When they do make a run for it in some of these spots, it's a while before the patrol cars actually get there. LAPD and the helicopter has to say, hey, we got a suspect jumped at this location, but the patrol cars are spread out, trying to get an idea where to go, where this individual's going. and they're not right behind them. So that limits how quickly they can get these suspects into custody, but that's just the chance you take. In some case, you know, you're looking at taking the suspect into custody if you're right behind the vehicle and they make a foot bail, they jump out, but it's too dangerous. So if you back off, it does favor the suspect a little bit if they jump out in one of these dark corners. I thought for maybe they slowed to get it behind that tree, but it does not appear to be the case. So it does make it challenging for the police at this point in time. A lot of resources. We haven't heard any information that the other two suspects who bailed out of this vehicle are in custody.
And to your point, Scott, even though those patrols have pulled back, that has not changed the behavior of this driver.
No.
They are still driving erratically, going through red lights, driving at dangerously high speeds. Is it because they still feel that spotlight on them from the police helicopter?
You know, it could be. I don't think the LAPD helicopter overhead is going to back off, though. I think they're going to keep them in sight. They're going to keep the light on them so they can see what happens. If they do make another stop and somebody gets out, they'll be able to see that. Even if it's behind a tree or in a situation where they're blocked by a building, at least they'll have light on the suspect. But at these types of speeds, I do not believe patrol cars are going to pursue, regardless. Okay, maybe they are. We're hearing some information they might try and put units back in position. It'll be interesting, but I don't see patrol cars pursuing these suspects at over 100 miles an hour on the surface streets. We'll just have to wait and see here. But boy, was that a red light? Yeah. Right through that red light. Somebody could really get seriously injured or killed here easily.
When we talk about the coordination, too, again, having that driver waiting for them, having their lights turned off, dropping off suspects behind trees, it almost gives you the idea they have some experience in this. But we'll never know.
Well, we've had so many burglary operations in the past few months, and a lot of them
look at that.
Professional in many ways.
Did they hit that vehicle?
It looks like they did. Came close, that's for sure. But yeah, as you mentioned, Scott,
this is coming up on the 110. It's coming up on the 110. Boy, that was close, though. Into oncoming traffic, trying to swerve to get away from that traffic and continue to move. And then at that point in time, they were able to get through, it appeared, without hitting anybody. That was the 110 freeway behind you. This is on Broadway now, and it looks like the vehicle is traveling northbound, if I'm not mistaken, on Broadway, headed up towards downtown Los Angeles.
And then if the driver's behavior doesn't change, it makes you wonder, should the patrols,
Yeah, should they just stay on it?
Stay on
It's
them,
not changing anything, yeah. But certainly we've seen this driver go through multiple red lights, drive on the wrong side of the road. Safety is not a concern for anyone else at this point, it seems.
Yeah, no question. Now northbound on Main, so we're south of downtown Los Angeles. We're east of the 110 freeway, just to give you a little perspective. This is an area that we can fly. LAX won't really give us or the LAPD helicopter any restrictions because of the airspace and airplanes landing at LAX. So at least we're going to be able to stay on this. But boy, so erratic. Northbound on Main, now turning on to Gage. It's just unclear exactly where they may be headed. And there's no rhyme or reason to it. Obviously, we have no idea what they're thinking. We can only speculate when it comes to something like that. But we are seeing more and more traffic out on the roadway. If you notice, there we go, a lot of LAPD vehicles in that intersection, and now they're right on his tail once again. It'll be interesting to see what happens if the suspect gets up to the 100-mile-an-hour speeds again. But boy, they really want to get this stopped. They realize how dangerous this is to the public. They realize an innocent person could be injured or killed very easily when you have somebody driving this erratically, and they want this over. So right now you have patrol cars behind them. Could you bring up the speed tracker? I think the speeds are getting very high once again. Yeah, you talk about 80 miles an hour on surface streets with vehicles around. I think the LAPD is probably going to back off here in a moment. I'd be surprised if they start driving 100 miles an hour behind them.
Yeah, and it is getting congested out there. This driver is having to slow down for traffic, and let's just hope it doesn't end with him driving into somebody else.
Yeah, making that turn right there, if somebody would be coming the other way, they would have just ran right into him. We're on Main once again. Headed northbound up towards downtown Los Angeles. Patrol cars right behind them still, but boy, speeds are extremely high on these surface streets. Talk about 100 miles an hour on the freeway, that's one thing. You talk about it, in these surface streets around here, that's something altogether different.
Yeah, we're tensing up every time you go
they would have just ran right in.
Yeah, right, in that dark street right there.
Yeah, turning the lights on and off. I'm not sure, maybe flashing the lights to let that person know in front of them they're coming, but well, look at that. I mean, we're talking about inches from being run into, it looked like right there. LAPD still right behind, swerving in and out of some of these streets. We're in South LA, 54th, just came off Broadway, now headed eastbound, I believe, and there's going to be, westbound, and there's crossing over the 110 freeway. But you can tell the night sun is lit up. The night sun from the LAPD helicopter is doing a great job. That's not easy to keep the light right on the vehicle.
And Scott, this driver has had opportunities to get back on the freeway, but it does appear in the last 20 minutes or so since we've been watching this that they have chosen to stay in South LA. Is that right?
That's correct. I mean, we were in Westchester earlier. It started in this area, approximately in the Newton Division. It was on the 105 freeway, on the 405. Then got off in that area around LAX on the surface streets, and then came eastbound into this area south of Los Angeles. 2 people have already jumped out of that vehicle. That's what we believe, 2 suspects. It could be just driving around trying to find another opportunity for the other person, the third person, not the driver, but we believe there's 2 on board to also make a run for it if they can get into a spot where it's dark like the other spots and somebody can jump out real quickly and police aren't right behind them. That may be the strategy. I mean, it's impossible to know for sure, but we've been on the freeway a couple of times, but most of this has been on surface streets, and it gets more and more concerning as we get more and more motorists out on the roadway. We get a little later in the morning, and even, you start getting your kids ready to go to school here in a little bit. Right now, it's not really the case, but you see the school buses are out, and the erratic driving is really a huge concern.
And as Scott mentioned, this happened or started around 5:15. That's when our coverage started. It started with 2 suspects in a U-Haul. Oh, that's close. 2 suspects in a U-Haul, burglary suspects, who then transferred into this black sedan with 2 other suspects. Since then, 2 suspects have jumped out of the vehicle, have disappeared into the neighborhood as far as we know. And we now have 2 suspects in this black sedan still driving in this area with the lights out. Incredibly high speeds at times, very dangerous conditions, and it's getting more crowded on our roads and highways, and that just makes it even more dangerous for everyone involved.
Yeah, and the patrol cars have backed off for the most part. I mean, it was just too reckless. You could tell, you got 4 or 5 patrol cars behind this vehicle, and he's turning in front of other cars, running through red lights, almost hit someone at one of these intersections. We're on 60th headed westbound in South Los Angeles right now. Unclear if maybe the suspect's looking for another spot where it's dark to let another person out of that vehicle or not. But they have backed off with the patrol cars for the moment, which really seems like a good strategy in my opinion. You don't need patrol cars doing 100 miles an hour trying to keep up with him on these streets. That's just an added danger in my opinion. But the suspect is in an area where they're just now starting to go around in circles. This is an area where we believe approximately the pursuit started when it was in the U-Haul. So it may be an area they're familiar with. We see that a lot.
Yeah, and a lot of times this is about the time where we start to see that fatigue set in and those drivers decide, I won't win this, and they decide to get out and give themselves up to police. But it does not seem to be the case with these 2 suspects, we presume, in this car right now.
Yeah, another thing that happens, if the vehicle stays in an area long enough, like in this one area here in South Los Angeles, keeps going on to the same streets, and the helicopter is giving the radio calls what direction and what street the vehicle's on, they start to think about spike strips. They start to think about hiding somewhere and throwing them out. But you sort of have to initiate, or you have to sort of figure out where you think the suspect's going to be, and then you can get a spike strip officer set up to throw out the spike strip. We're hearing a little conversation on the scanner about that. So that could very well happen depending if the suspect heads to an area that they're prepared for, or it continues to stay in the same area. That'll allow LAPD officers to get a strategy together and block some of these intersections, or get an officer in the intersection hiding, and then when the vehicle comes by, they throw out the spike strip. That would be a great way to stop this as well. Hopefully they can get something like that going, or if the suspect gives up before somebody really gets seriously injured or hurt.
And as Scott mentioned, it looks like police, at least on the ground, have backed off a little bit so they don't provoke this driver to go even faster. The helicopter remains overhead. You can see the spotlight on the vehicle, tracking that vehicle. And again, weaving in and out of traffic, driving at a high rate of speed, staying in that same general area where those 2 other suspects were dropped off earlier, 15, 20 minutes ago. And we do still have 2 suspects driving around with the lights off as police follow from above.
Yeah, we're north on Crenshaw now, and you can tell how much faster that vehicle is going than the other vehicles in the intersection, so you really get an idea of the speed. And there's a speed tracker, so, you know, at one time we had over 100 miles an hour on a surface street, and right now you can tell the vehicle is really accelerating. It wouldn't surprise me if we see 100 miles an hour once again northbound on Crenshaw. So if you continue to take Crenshaw all the way up, you know, you're going to travel all the way to 10, the Santa Monica Freeway, and up into Mid-City. It'll be interesting to see, but when the suspect stays on one street for a long stretch of time, it does allow LAPD officers to get in position. Now they've gotten off on the Mert, it's a little street that merges off of Crenshaw, and then I think it's going to turn into Vernon, if I'm not mistaken. And now they made a turn on Vernon. They're headed back eastbound. So Vernon and 11th, we're seeing a pattern now, staying in this certain area, South Los Angeles, Exhibition Park. That seems to be the area where the suspect has been now, I'd say, for what, the last 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes or so.
And a good Wednesday morning to all of our viewers joining us here at 6 a.m. I'm Rachel Brown here with John Gregory. Tony Cabrera is off, and Scott Reif is following breaking news right now.
And we've been following this pursuit for about an hour now. Initially, it started with two suspects in a U-Haul, burglary suspects that police were chasing in South L.A. Those two suspects then moved into a black sedan with two other suspects, four suspects. Since that time, two suspects have jumped out, police now looking for them, and they continue to pursue this black sedan with at least two suspects inside. Let's get the latest with Scott Reif.
Right underneath the southbound, you see it?
Scott, what is the latest that you're seeing?
Yeah, John. Well, southbound now on Arlington, slowing down a bit. Oh boy, look at that. Look, there it is. We knew something like this was going to happen. Now we have a collision. Hopefully nobody was hurt. We believe there's two on board. Maybe just one. Maybe we missed another person getting out. But now you have the suspect running on foot, southbound on Arlington. Patrol cars right behind him. They're going to have this individual into custody here in a moment. There is just no way that individual is going to get out. They're going behind a home now. So, hey, if you live in this area off Arlington and 48th Street in South Los Angeles, you never know with a suspect that is this desperate if they could try and, you know, take a hostage. You come inside your house, keep the doors and windows locked if you can. You hear the helicopter overhead. You're going to see the patrol cars swarming this area, and we're going to try and keep that suspect in sight. But that was a pretty violent collision. We certainly hope that the individual that was struck in that car was not hurt, but certainly a collision like that could cause you know, a lot of injuries. I don't know where that vehicle ended up. There it is right there. You can see fire engines, fire units are going to respond, paramedics are going to respond, and we believe the suspect is behind one of these homes right here off 2nd Avenue and 48th in the Hyde Park area.
We can see those lights flashing. I can see some patrol units nearby. So hopefully within the matter of the next few minutes, this suspect will be taken into custody.
Yeah, it looks like patrol units on both sides of the block there, so they do have personnel in place, and more personnel obviously on the way as we speak.
It did appear, too, that the driver that was involved in that collision with a pursuit suspect, I believe I saw them opening their driver door, and so we hope, again, that driver is okay, but we knew something like this was going to happen.
Yeah, it seemed inevitable with the speeds that they were driving at as recklessly as the suspect was driving. Now, remember, you know, it's hard to get completely accurate information. We thought four suspects were on board that vehicle, the black sedan. We saw two get out, or we heard specifically that two got out. We thought two were left, but another person may have gotten out, or maybe there was only three to begin with. Sometimes it's really, go ahead and show it to me. It's really difficult to process the information and get it accurate all the time. Can you show me? Oh, there we go. Look at this. Here's the accident. Great job, Marcel. It doesn't appear that it's that violent. We're rewinding it. That's awesome. Hit the front of that vehicle. God forbid it didn't broadside it. If that would have happened, boy, somebody could have been killed very easily. There's a good look at the suspect. We're going to come back out to the live shot, and this is the area where now they're searching for that one suspect, and I'm sure they will find him. There was patrol cars all around this area. They've shut down or made a perimeter around all of the streets surrounding where this occurred, and certainly it was a violent collision, but it did appear. Can we find that vehicle in our live shot where it ended up right there? Yeah, boy, I tell you, just a couple of feet, right? That vehicle's coming southbound, the other vehicle's going eastbound. It hit the front of that vehicle instead of broadsiding it right on the side. That would have been, really dangerous for the driver, that, driver space intrusion type accident. It looks like they're up and walking around. So if they are injured, it doesn't appear that they have critical injuries. So that is good news.
suspect, at last check, that person was in a backyard of one of these homes here that police have now moved in to try and surround. But we really haven't seen that person since that time, Scott. It looks like the same general area that they're looking at. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think they set up a perimeter pretty quickly, and they know basically within this block that the suspect's behind one of these homes. It's dark in the back, but they're going to just go ahead and set up a perimeter, keep an eye on everything so the suspect can't get out, and then at some point they'll probably bring in the canine if they can't find him quickly. And a lot of times they look for an instance like somebody walking in the backyard and a motion light coming on. I saw a motion light come on there a moment ago, but that might have been just the LAPD shining their light down the alleyway. But it appears you could tell the perimeter they've set up. The suspect is somewhere in here. It's really unlikely that he's going to get away. They set up a perimeter, and then they slowly have to just start a search of each one of these backyards. The canines will be en route if they're not here already, because they certainly are the best tool to search for individuals that are hiding.
And Scott, for our viewers who are watching who live in this community, can you tell us what the intersection is, what streets that we need to be on the lookout for?
Yeah, I think it was 48th, if I'm not mistaken. Can you go up to where the accident was, Marcel? Bring up Arlington and 52nd, if we can bring up Sky Map. But Arlington and 52nd, that's basically just south of that intersection. That's 48th in Arlington, actually.
Yeah. Okay, so if you live in this neighborhood, keep your doors locked. Is the suspect still at large? For all we know, he hasn't been apprehended just yet.
And we still have two other at least suspects wandering around these neighborhoods too. So, yeah, the general area, people need to be concerned and need to be alert, because we may have multiple suspects in neighborhoods and wandering around neighborhoods who could be dangerous.
Yeah, the other two suspects were quite some distance from this, though. So the two that we saw, one behind a tree, and then the one was way south and west of here. But there'll be a search there as well. But you can see how much more difficult it is, John and Rachel, when you don't have a patrol car behind the suspect and a suspect jumps out. You just don't have the resources to take that suspect into custody, like the two that jumped. When this happens and the patrol cars are right behind the vehicle, then they were able to swarm this area with patrol cars and set up a perimeter. So it's going to be much easier to catch this individual, the suspect, I believe, than it will be to catch the other two that jumped out when no patrol cars were behind them.
And Scott, do you have eyes on the suspect, and are you seeing any officers on foot? I haven't seen any officers on foot yet.
Well, they're setting up a perimeter. They've got the night sun overhead. We do not have eyes on the suspect. We lost the suspect when he went into the back of a home, and then more than likely, he's just jumping fences and trying to get as far away as possible. I think it was more to the right. The original home that we saw was right in there. That's where the suspect initially jumped. He ran through that home right there into the backyard and then jumped towards another home in the back, and that's when we lost him. Like I mentioned, a lot of times when we follow stories like this, we'll look into a backyard and we'll see a motion light come on. One came on right there, and that'll give us some indication that sometimes that somebody's behind there, but we really don't have the suspect pinpointed.
Yeah, and visibility has been an issue throughout this chase, not just because it's dark, but because this driver has been driving without the headlights, which made it incredibly dangerous for everybody. And of course, it ended with a traffic collision. So that has been a problem. Some daylight would certainly help police in their search efforts.
Yeah, we're getting some information. They might have eyes on the suspect next to a red truck and a yellow motorcycle. We just get things over the scanner, and that's sort of what we're hearing. So it's hard to say how far the suspect could have got away from that crash site, running through backyards, jumping over fences, but they set up a pretty big perimeter, and we're just basically looking around with a camera to see if we can find some of the indicators like that red truck, motorcycle, because they believe the suspect was in that area. There's a motion light, push in there. A lot of times that's what we see. You got a suspect in the backyard and a motion light comes on. It could be residents too, because the residents, when they hear all this noise and the helicopter, they come out and they're looking around. But that was suspicious, I would say, that the light just came on all of a sudden in that backyard.
And during this hour-long pursuit, we also believe that two other suspects bailed at some point. And when that happened, those people were concealed a bit behind trees. And it almost gives you the sense that this driver may have had some strategy involved, driving without the headlights on.
The whole operation seemed very coordinated.
Yeah.
As Scott mentioned, it started with the U-Haul with 2 suspects who then rendezvoused, it looks like, with this black sedan, possibly with 2 more suspects. Then they got into this very long chase. And then the drivers went around that neighborhood over and over again before dropping off 2 suspects. So it seemed very coordinated. It seems like maybe these people have experience doing this sort of thing. But boy, unfortunately, at this point, it does not look like anybody's been hurt, but it could have been much worse.
Yeah, it could have been deadly.
Yeah, I was certainly fortunate that accident. I mean, we don't know yet if anybody was hurt. I'd be surprised if they weren't, minor injuries, because that was a pretty serious collision there. But they were able to get out and walk out of their vehicle. It's hard to say. You get hit like that, boy, that's quite the jolt, and that'll really get your attention. And hopefully they're not hurt at all, right? There's no injuries whatsoever. But it's hard to tell for sure. That was a pretty violent collision. It could have been much worse, though. Fortunately, it hit the front of that vehicle and didn't hit it on the side where the driver's side was. And you can tell when the night sun is on, this is the area where they believe the suspect may be. But it's really difficult to set up a perimeter and then get enough resources in here. You got about a block and a half to make sure the individual doesn't get away. So we did hear they may be hiding next to a red truck. We're looking around, we're trying to find them, but as of right now, we have not been able to find the suspect. There is a red truck on the curb there. There was some talk about a motorcycle, a yellow motorcycle, so we may be in the right spot right here.
Yeah, the daylight would certainly assist police, though, in finding this suspect.
Scott, is there any word on the suspect vehicle? I'm guessing it's stolen. Do we know?
No word on that whatsoever. The U-Haul, I think we might have had original information. The U-Haul came back stolen, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was the case. Yes, it was stolen, the U-Haul. The vehicle that the suspects fled into, the black sedan that was in the accident, we didn't get any update on that, whether it was stolen or not, but it'd be kind of silly if it's your own vehicle to try and get the suspects in and drive away, because they'd have the plates and they pretty much have you. But that's hard to tell, John.
And early on in the chase, we saw that suspect hitting dangerous speeds on the freeway, but I'd say the last 30, 40 minutes or so, they seem to primarily stay in this South Los Angeles area, which gives us the impression that maybe there's some familiarity there. And we believe, again, 2 other suspects were dropped off at some point at the end of this pursuit.
And that's
I think the most chilling aspect was speeds over 100 miles an hour on the surface streets. I mean, that's just frightening. You see the ambulance is headed there. We pan to the right a little bit. We're trying to keep an eye on where maybe the suspect will be found, but that's where the collision occurred, and it looks like an ambulance is heading that way. So more than likely, it's hard to say if anybody was seriously injured. They're the vehicle right there, the white vehicle that was hit. You see the damage in the front, but paramedics are going to check them out and make sure they're okay. And then the one suspect is still off to the left there. There's a suspect vehicle. That swerved out of control once it hit the other vehicle in that intersection, and then of course that appeared to be a man, made a run for it down into this area right here. There's the ambulance en route right now, trying to make sure if anybody was injured they get some treatment.
And that suspect, when he left the vehicle, looked like he was wearing all dark clothing. Again, we believe it's a man.
Yep.
All dark clothing, again, making it difficult to keep an eye on them in these visibility issues, dark conditions. But that's the area where we last saw the suspect, into one of those backyards. And now police have fanned out around this neighborhood. They've set up a perimeter on both sides, on both streets, and they're now working to coordinate and search those yards, which is difficult and dangerous, too. We don't know if this person is armed. We don't know what their history is. So a difficult job ahead for police.
Yeah, there's the red vehicle. Marcel, can we bring up the sky map and open up a little bit? I want to give people a little perspective on where this is. So you've got 2nd, you've got Arlington, you've got 3rd, and you've got north of 52nd and south of 48th. So if you live in that area, that whole area they're searching right now. It looks like they didn't initially take the suspect into custody. We can take that off now. And so now they're just sort of focusing their attention off of 2nd. There's the red pickup truck. We think we heard them talk about the suspect maybe in that area. You see a lot of patrol cars have swerved into this area, and then you also see the night sun from the LAPD helicopter lighting things up. But boy, the canine units, I'm sure, are en route. That is the most effective tool to try and find somebody who might be hiding in behind a home like this.
And for our viewers who are just watching, just tuning in, for about the last hour and a half or so, we have been following this pursuit. These were burglary suspects, and at about 6 o'clock this morning, that suspect ended up getting into a crash with another vehicle and getting out, running away. Right now, police are in pursuit of him on foot. We haven't seen that suspect, though, in about 15 minutes or so. And that is what we're watching right now, closely watching and monitoring. And people who are living in this area, Scott just gave us perspective of this neighborhood and these intersections. You'll want to keep your doors locked, and you're going to want to stay on alert because we believe that suspect is on foot trying to hide from police right now.
Yeah, no question about that. I think we might have the accident once again to re-rack and show you. We're actually working on it. We'll have that in a couple of moments. And it was a violent collision. It appeared that the vehicle, that the suspect vehicle hit, everyone on board appeared to be initially okay. But, you're in shock initially. You may get out of the vehicle and then you realize, my arm is broken. I mean, things like that do happen. You just don't notice the pain when you are just slammed out of nowhere by a vehicle. And the fire department is there now. But it could have been worse. It hit the front of that vehicle instead of broadsided it. If it had broadsided it, then the driver really would have had a tough time, and that injuries, I think, would have been severe. But this appears to be the home that they're focusing their attention on. I believe we have that video now we could show you. And this is the pursuit as it ended. You see the suspect vehicle traveling at a really high rate of speed, slowed down a little, fortunately, for this intersection, but going through a red light, and then boom, tapped the front of that vehicle. Can you imagine if it would have broadsided it? It just hit the front, but it could have been a lot worse. So we had that vehicle. It looked like at least one, maybe two people on board the white car that was hit by the suspect. And then keep it rolling for a moment. You see the suspect, there he is, all dark clothes. The vehicle starts to roll, grabs his sweater, and makes a run for it down the street here, and then runs into a backyard. Now, LAPD had a light over him from the helicopter pretty quickly, but boy, it gets extremely difficult to keep an eye on a suspect like this once they get, behind and into a backyard. So that was what happened at the end of the pursuit. Say again, Marcel? Now we're back out to the live shot. So the suspect's in here somewhere. It can be really difficult, if you don't set up a perimeter big enough and fast enough. Every now and then, someone will get out of the perimeter. It's not very likely. We don't see it very often. More than likely, they're going to get this suspect. But it can be difficult if the suspect's able to run across the street and nobody sees him, and then get into another neighborhood or another block over, and then that's outside of their perimeter. We don't believe that's the case. We believe they're going to find him in this area. I'll bring up Sky Map one more time because it is important. If you live in this area, you're south of 48th, between 2nd and Arlington, basically. Keep your doors and windows locked. This is a suspect that was willing to do anything to get away from police officers, and he's desperate, and we don't know if he's armed. We don't know if he could take a hostage. We don't know if he'd break into a home. So just keep that in mind. You're awake if you live in this area. There's helicopters overhead. The LAPD's low, the lights, the sirens. You certainly know something is going on. And if you're watching now, you know exactly what it is. But keep your doors and windows locked. Don't allow any opportunity for the suspect to maybe get inside your house.
And Scott, you mentioned this earlier. We often have this debate about pursuits and whether police should follow closely, whether they should back off. The downside, in this case, when they do back off, it does give suspects an opportunity to get loose, to sneak off into the dark, and police can't get there quick enough on foot to track them down. And we believe that may have happened at least 2 times with this pursuit, and now we have a third suspect, at least a third suspect, maybe 4, still out there as well.
That's a trade-off, you are balancing safety to the community versus getting a hardened criminal in custody. And, how are you exactly going to balance those two? I think backing off, in my opinion, on a vehicle traveling over 100 miles an hour on surface streets in a residential area is a good strategy, because the main thing is we just don't want anybody to get seriously injured or killed in these pursuits. And if they don't catch this guy today, they're going to catch him later, right? I mean, that's the way I see it. I know not everybody sees it the same way, but I think it's a smart strategy not to pursue a suspect at 100 miles an hour in a residential area.
Yeah, and to your point, Scott, we know adrenaline can mask injuries, but also he did look quite able as he got out of that vehicle and started running. So that's why we just want our viewers to be on alert. And Fortunate for this driver that obviously he's okay, and it appears that the victims that he hit might be okay too, because this could have been an extremely deadly incident at the rate of speeds that he was traveling in.
Scott, we're going to break away for now. I know you're overhead, and we'll be checking back with you. We want to get to some other news and also check with Leslie Lopez, get a look at weather. But again, this is a story we'll be covering throughout the morning.
Yeah, thank you so much, Scott. A scary way to start the day for many drivers this morning. Good morning to you again. It's 6:19. I'm Rachel Brown here with John Gregory. Tony's off today.
And let's check in with Leslie Lopez. Nice week shaping up outside.
All right.